Namaste and welcome everyone to Dairy World Tour episode 5. My name's Anne Lakuta. I'm one of the health and wellness managers at Dairy West, and I'm also your Dairy World Tour host. And today we are venturing all the way over to India to go on a virtual vacation throughout India with our two wonderful guest speakers today. Archana Mudhe and Vandana Sheth are here to share all their knowledge and experience around Indian culture and cuisine. So Archana Mudhe is joining us as our culinary expert for today's episode. Archana is a recipe developer, she's a food blogger, and she's author of the Essential Indian Instant Pot Cookbook. Archana also founded Ministry of Curry, which is an absolutely beautiful website and food blog with simple, fun, and of course, super tasty recipes for all of you to check out. And then we also have Vandana Sheth joining us today as our nutrition expert. Vandana is a registered dietitian nutritionist. She is a certified specialist in diabetes care and education. She's also a certified intuitive eating counselor. And among many other things, Vandana is featured in countless news and media outlets, and she's a cookbook author as well. Her cookbook is My Indian Table, Quick and Tasty Vegetarian Recipes. So we are about to have a ton of fun with Archana and Vandana today, but before we get to all the fun and get to hear from them, I do have my usual housekeeping items covered to make sure everyone on the line has a wonderful experience today. All right, so first things first, everyone should have received their India dairy product box last week in the mail. So once again, you got a really tasty array of locally produced Idaho and Utah dairy products. And in that box, you also had your Dairy World Tour recipe cards. And then I have them here. Well, I don't have them here, but we surprised you guys with some Dairy West measuring spoons too. And that was important because Indian cuisine uses all sorts of spices. So you'll definitely get to utilize those measuring spoons as you're cooking up some of your Indian recipes from Archana and Vandana. So in your box, first you had the Gosner Foods butter, which is utilized in your ghee recipe. You also received beehive cheese Ruthie's ricotta, which is used in the kalakand recipe. And then lastly, you received Heber Valley artisan cheese Juustoleipa. And so the Juustoleipa is used as a locally produced substitute for the Kathi Rolls, which would normally use paneer, which is a common Indian cheese. And so Juustoleipa is interesting. It's actually a finished bread cheese, but you can grill it or saute it and it holds its form, which is similar to paneer. So that's why it served as a great substitute for our product box and for the recipe today. And of course, if you guys are having a great time with Dairy World Tour and you're posting photos on social media, we would love to see them. Make sure to use the hashtag Dairy World Tour and we'll go and check out all of your photos and hopefully all of the fun that you're having with it. All right, so about halfway through the episode is our cooking demo. And so Archana today is doing a bonus demo. She's gonna kickstart it with a demo of the ghee recipe. So if you want to join her and cook along, the only ingredient is butter. So it's super simple. She's gonna show you how awesome and tasty it is and easy it is to make. And then the featured recipe that she's demoing today are the Kathi Rolls. So if you'd like to cook along with these, you still have time right now to gather all of your ingredients, prep them, measure them out, make sure you have your kitchen utensils ready to go. I did want to know, and Archana is going to talk on this too, if you are going to cook along today and you're only using the Juustoleipa that was in the box, she's going to give you some notes on how to half that recipe. If you did buy extra Juustoleipa or paneer to use the total 2 cups that was accounted for, you can keep the measurements the same. And so we're going to go ahead and pop the links to the recipes in the chat. So if you want to reference those online instead of using your recipe card, you can do that. And just a note to everyone, all of the Dairy World Tour recipes that we've gone through so far, as well as the recordings to the episodes, are all online on unbottled.com on our Dairy World Tour page. So go ahead and reference those, share them with friends, watch them again if you missed any of them. They're all there for your viewing pleasure. All right, so speaking of the chat, let's go ahead and check that out right now because we would love it if you guys utilize the chat to engage with our presenters, with everyone on the line, and even with direct messages with people if you have friends on the line. So if you look at the bottom of your screen, you can actually click on the chat button. And that should pop a chat box up in the right hand of your Zoom window. And so you can see the recipes are there. We already have some people telling us where they're joining from. If you haven't already, we'd love to know where you're joining us today from. I know we're all over the country. And you'll notice at the bottom that you can chat with everyone, so everyone will see your message, but you can even click down and chat with individuals if you want to send any of those direct messages as well. We are also using the chat for questions, so please ask all sorts of questions throughout. We'll be tracking the chat, so we'll hang on to those questions and then we'll bring them to Vandana and Archana at the end during our Q&A session, with the exception of during Archana's demo. So we're gonna make sure, I'm gonna be watching the chat during that time. So if you have any questions on the recipe or ingredients she's using or need any clarity on steps, go ahead and ask those, and I'll make sure that Archana gets them so she can answer it in the moment for you. Okay, so we have one last thing that we want to do before we welcome Archana and Vandana. We want to hear from you guys and what your experience with India is. So you should see a poll pop up in just a minute here. There it is. So have you visited India before? Once, multiple times, lived there? No, but it's on my bucket list. We're going to give everyone about 30 seconds to go ahead and answer this, and then we'll share the results so we can see, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Lots of responses coming in. All right, one more second. Wow, okay, so all of you should be able to see this. Just 2 of you have been to India once, 1 of you has lived there, and then most of us have not been yet. I have a feeling after this presentation, we're gonna be especially dying to go. It's gonna be #1 on the bucket list. So that's exciting. All right, well, let's get started. I would love to welcome Archana Mudhe and Vandana Sheth to the stage. We like to kickstart all of our Dairy World Tour episodes by asking our presenters a question, so you really get to tell your own story and the audience gets to know you through your own words. So we're gonna start with Archana today. And Archana, share with us, what does food mean to you and how has your connection to India impacted that meaning?
Thank you, Anne. Food to me is love. It is also a gateway for us to understand the culture, the traditions, and people from different parts of the world. I grew up in India eating my mom's homemade food. Her food not only tastes amazing and draws flavors and spices from all over India, but her presentation is a feast to the eyes. I've been living in the US for the last 20 years, and I'm proud to say that now I'm able to cook my mom's recipes for my family and friends. And I love that food has helped connect 3 generations in my family. And now I'm also able to share my recipes with wider audience, the same recipes that I grew up eating, except these ones that I publish are so much more easier to make, but with the same authentic taste.
Oh, thank you, Archana. We're so excited to cook with you today, and everyone wait until you see her kitchen set up. She has such beautiful spices. I'm sure similar to how your mom used to set it up as well. So Vandana, how about you? What does food mean to you and how has your connection to India impacted that meaning?
Well, I'm so excited to be here, and I concur with a lot of what Archana said. Food to me is really something to be savored. It's a joyous experience. It's something that connects us to our memories, to our heritage, to our culture. And I have very fond memories of my childhood home in India and my mom's kitchen. I was born and raised in Madras, which is in the south of India, but my family is originally from the northwestern state of Gujarat. So our family, as it is in India, had a fusion of 2 different cuisines within India. And then when I moved here, I've been here now almost 30 years, proud to be an Indian American, love bringing that culture, that heritage to my audience, to my clients, and of course, to a wider audience through media. I think food, again, is something to be just really savored and enjoyed. And in how crazy life gets here, we sometimes miss out on that. My big mission is to simplify those recipes and make sure that you can still have a fabulous tasting meal that's authentic to its roots, but doesn't take 7 or 8 hours to put together. So if we're ready, I'm going to kick off our tour then. So I assume you've got your bags packed, you have your passports and visas, you're on the plane, got your seatbelt buckled in, and imagine you're getting on a flight that's going to last about 18 to 22 hours flight time. You're ending on the other side of the world to India. And India is one of the oldest civilizations in the world. It's the seventh largest country in the world. And when you enter India, what you're going to experience is an abundance of, it's a multicultural experience. You're going to have this rich heritage. It's almost a fusion of old world and new world. You will be walking through bustling old bazaars, but you may also walk into a swanky high-tech shopping mall. You will have these heritage, beautiful old historic monuments. You may also see some really amazing newer construction. So it's really this mix of two different parts of the Indian heritage. So I can't wait to take you on this tour. And so let's go into a little bit more details. So if you look at India, it's almost sort of shaped as a diamond. It has the peaking Himalayas, the mountain ranges on the top. On the sides, we have two different water features. So you have the Bay of Bengal and you have the Arabian Sea. That forms the coastline. And in the bottom, in the south, you have the Indian Ocean. And the bordering countries of India are Bangladesh, Nepal, Pakistan, Myanmar, Sri Lanka. And sometimes this whole region is called the Indian subcontinent. And as you can see, there are about 29 states. And I was born and raised in the bottom right here in Chennai, which is called Madras now, which was called Madras. It was on the coast. And I believe Archana was born and raised somewhere here in Mumbai. Yeah,
Yeah, I
Archana?
was born in the state of Maharashtra. And the bigger city that everybody knows is Mumbai. It's very similar to New York City, but yes, from Western India, Maharashtra.
Yes. And so when we look at India, I'm going to walk you through a virtual tour with different parts of the country. So it might seem a little overwhelming, but I hope you have fun. So we're going to start way on the top, and I'm going to take you to the west, the east, and the south. And so let's kick it off with the majestic Himalayas. The Himalayas are the mountain range that's on the top. That's the divide between the Indian subcontinent and the Tibetan mountains and ranges on the other side. Often when we think about India, you may not think about the Himalayas, but they are what sets the country up in terms of climate, in terms of the rivers. Most of the rivers in India originate from the Himalayas. And the climate is perfect for growing saffron. It's perfect for walnut trees. For many of the nuts we get around the country in India come from the Himalayan regions. It also is a place for great skiing and mountain climbing. And so that might be something that might be attractive to you. It's got beautiful lakes, lots of fruits, lots of dried fruits and nuts come from this area.
And teas and coffees too, right?
Yes, yes, the plantation.
Yeah, the
Darjeeling.
plantations, yeah.
Right. Darjeeling tea comes from the Himalayan range, from the foothills, and also basmati rice is grown in the foothills of the Himalayas. So it's a spectacular place. Next, I'm going to take you to Amritsar, and this is the Golden Temple. And in India, what you may not realize is there are quite a few religions that practice peacefully. So there's Hinduism, which is the predominant faith, but there's Sikhism, there's Jainism, there's Buddhism, there's Christianity, there's those who follow Islam. So you have all the different faiths functioning together. And this temple here is one of the most holy places for those who follow the Sikh religion. Moving on to Redford. Now this is in Delhi. Delhi is the capital of India. And what's interesting about the Red Fort is it was designed to be the capital by Shah Jahan, who was the fifth Mughal emperor. He decided to move the capital from Agra to Delhi. And this was in around 1648, 1658 AD. And it's beautiful. It's made from this red stone. And that's why the name Red Fort, or it's called Lal Killa in Hindi. Another side fact is that India has about 18 to 22 official languages, not dialects, but languages. And so what that means is depending on which part of the country you go to, there's an actual full-on language with different script. And so a few common languages across the country are English is spoken in most parts of the country, as well as Hindi, which is more the national language. and you will see that throughout. And right now, if you visited Redford, they have some beautiful slideshows and lighting that you can attend, and it walks you through the history of the place. Of course, we moved to Agra, and this is the Taj Mahal. When we think about India, everyone thinks of the Taj Mahal. So Taj Mahal is a magnificent sight to see. If you've never been, I truly hope you get to see this. It's made of marble. It was designed as a dedication by the Emperor Shah Jahan to dedicate his love for his wife. And so Shah Jahan created this monument for his wife Mumtaz Mahal, and it's just a spectacular sight to see. And now I'm going to take you to Hawa Mahal. This is on the west coast, actually not coast, but it's on the western region. It's in the state of Rajasthan. And do you see this? It's gorgeous. The meaning of Hawa in Hindi is breeze. So when you say Hawa Mahal, that means the palace of breeze. And the reason this was special is because it has about 940, 950 windows on the outer facade. And the reason this was created was because in those days, there was something called the Parda system that was based on the culture there. Royal ladies were not allowed to be seen in public. They were not able to show their faces to strangers. And so this was a way that they could still participate and see the view of the streets, but not be seen by others. So they are little peepholes, but it's just, again, an amazing sight, 950 little windows all throughout. And because the air that comes through, the breeze that comes through, this was a very popular palace in the summer for the royalty. Again, when you think about India, I wanted you to know that there's all kinds of landscapes. So you have the mountains, that's the Himalayas, and then you have the desert. This is the Thar Desert in the region of Rajasthan. And what's interesting about the Thar Desert is it actually separates Pakistan and India. And if you enjoy this type of scenery, there are all kinds of forts. You can do camel safaris, you can do desert camps, you can do like jeep safaris, all kinds of fun, adventurous activities there. So here's a different landscape. This is the West Coast. It's the state of Goa. Goa is the smallest state in terms of population and size, and it's very close to where Archana grew up. Archana grew up in Maharashtra. This is just the little, it's a little state right off there. And what's special about Goa was that it was in 3rd BC. It was part of the Buddhism movement. The emperor and the Buddhist monks at that time laid the foundation of Buddhism in Goa. Later, it became a Portuguese colony, and it became the capital of the Portuguese Empire in Asia. It's known for its gorgeous beaches. It's known for this mix of food because it has the Christian, the Portuguese, and the Hindu faiths all coming together. The food is pretty unique that comes from this place. Now we're traveling to sort of the central part of India, to a state called Madhya Pradesh. And I wanted to showcase this beautiful temple. And this is just one of about 20 temples that still stands. This is from the 950 to 1000 AD. So it's really old. All the sculptures are gorgeous. And they are from 2 different faiths. They represent either Hinduism or Jainism. And it's something to be seen. And inside there are lots of beautiful carvings as well. But I hope someday you get to visit this. This is Khajuraho. And interesting tidbit, the word Khaju means date. And it's believed that a long time ago, there were date trees at the entrance. And that's how this place was called Khajuraho. Now we're moving to one of the most sacred cities called Varanasi. It's also known as Benares. And this is on, by the Ganges River. It was formed in the 11th century, and it's been known to have about 2,000 temples in this one place. It's one of the holiest places for anyone who's Hindu. There are lots of religious ceremonies that happen there. And in the evenings, they have this Arti ceremony, which is a religious ceremony thanking um, thanking God for the beautiful life that they have. And it's a sight to be seen. If you YouTube it and look for Ganga Aarti, that's something that you enjoy seeing. We're moving down south to a place called Mysore. Mysore was the capital in the 1300s to 1400s. And what's interesting about Mysore Palace is that it's still part of the royal family. It's in the base of the Chamunda Hills. And if you look inside, it is stunning. This is a picture from inside the Mysore Palace. It's very close to a popular city called Bangalore. If you've heard of Bangalore, it's sort of the high-tech Silicon Valley of India. And this Mysore Palace is very close to that, about a couple hours drive from there. So if this is something that you enjoy, I would recommend visiting Mysore. The outer facade is made from gray granite, and the inside has got all this gold leaf work, and it's gorgeous. So as you can see, different landscapes. So now we're going to the southern state of Kerala. And Kerala is known for its lush green, almost tropical, subtropical forests, lots of backwaters. You can rent a houseboat and live on there for a few days. You could go to they have a lot of sanctuaries, wildlife sanctuaries. So if you like safaris, you can go see some wild Indian elephants, tigers, langur monkeys. If you've heard of Ayurveda, which is the ancient science from India, there's a lot of Ayurvedic treatments that were originated in the state of Kerala. So this is something you may enjoy. And this is again a feature of Kerala. Kerala has these plantations. They are known, the weather is perfect for growing tea and spices. Kerala is a place you could get some really good black pepper, cardamom. You can get tea, of course, and ginger. They're known for those spices. And finally, we're ending up in my home state of Tamil Nadu. So Mahabalipuram is it was built in 7th and 8th century AD. They were about 15 to 20 structures, but now there are maybe 3 left. They believe archaeologically that there are some buried in the ocean down there, but this is a very popular site. It's called the Shore Temple. It has a lot of beautiful rock sculptures, and it's now a heritage site. They even have destination weddings here. And growing up in Southeast India, I was used to seeing the best sunrises there. And when I moved to LA almost 30 years ago, now I get to see the best sunsets here. So I'm right by the ocean, both places, and it's a blessing. But Mahabalipuram is just about 45-minute car drive away from Madras, which is the main city, which is now called Chennai. So that is basically a rapid tour through India. We've seen the mountains, we've seen the ocean, we've seen the desert. And I also wanted to tell you that if you enjoy wildlife, there are some beautiful sanctuaries. You can go see tigers and lions and elephants and rhinoceros. So everything there, just make a visit. You're going to never regret that. So we're getting ready to do the fun part, the cooking with Archana. So she's going to do 2 recipes. The first one is a bonus ghee recipe. And as Anne had mentioned, you have the butter, and Archana is going to walk you through the simple recipe. And ghee is such a big part of the Indian culture, Indian food. So this is something I'm glad she's sharing with you. And the second recipe is the feature recipe, the Kathi Roll. And this is a really fun street food. It's very popular, and I can't wait to make mine. I have all the ingredients and looking forward to making Archana's recipe. So here you go, Archana, it's all yours.
All right, so I am super excited to cook 2 dishes with you. The first one being ghee. It's one of the basic staple pantry ingredients in Indian households. It's so easy to make. Needs 1 ingredient, and I would say it's almost like brown butter, but not almost. You have to stop cooking it a little bit before it gets overly browned, and you don't have to skim the foam or anything. So it's super easy. In your boxes, you got salted butter. Usually I use unsalted butter, but salted works fine. the brown bits will absorb all the salt, so your ghee will still not be salty. So it's totally okay to use the salted butter. So I know the box was 16 ounces with 4 sticks. We're gonna cook 2 sticks right now just for a quick demo, and then you can make more ghee, obviously. So here I have a 2-quart heavy bottom stainless steel pan. I'm just gonna go ahead, unwrap these sticks and add it to the pan. Just make sure your pan is dry so it cooks evenly and nothing splatters out of the pan. If there is any moisture, it will eventually start splattering. And so just leave the ghee in there. Right now, my heat is at medium. If you are going to watch it, you can always increase the heat until the butter melts and then eventually lower it. Again, a pretty easy, no-fail recipe. If you do end up overcooking it, it's great. It gets nuttier, smells amazing. If you undercook it, that's fine too. You might get like a couple spoons of less ghee, but it's still equally delicious. And ghee is something that in India we use mostly for making sweets, but there are a lot of recipes like biryanis or some of the North Indian curries where we use a lot of ghee. In Western India and Southern India, where we make rice dishes, we use a lot of ghee. So lots of uses of ghee. You can pretty much replace any recipe in Indian food that has oil with ghee and it will taste delicious. It just has these beautiful nutty aromas. And I'm going to actually tell you some other fun ways to use ghee, but I just want to show you guys that it started to melt. And I'm just going to give it a quick stir so it sort of cooks evenly. And super easy. This is going to take about 8 minutes for us to make the whole recipe. And you'll see how it goes. But again, I have my heat at medium. If you guys are cooking along with me, go ahead, put your butter in the pan, cook it at medium heat, and we'll start melting the ghee. And then I'm going to show you the different states in which the butter will melt and then get all bubbly and then eventually get nice and golden brown. You don't want to make it overly brown. You want to make it like beautiful golden brown. So I was talking about some of the other uses of ghee other than making food with it. You can replace any baking recipes that call for butter with ghee. On my site, I have a delicious brownie recipe with ghee, and it's so amazing. Everybody loves it. Kind of a healthier version of the regular brownies. You can also use it on your skin in the winter season. So you can use it as a chapstick. So just like dab your fingers once it's nice and cold and put it on your lips. You can put it on your face. You can put it on your hands, and it just will make your hands and your lips like nice and soft, retains the moisture really well. And it's all natural. There are no additives or anything in it. So it's really great. So right now, like all the butter has melted, as you guys can see, and it's gonna get really bubbly on the top. And then eventually, I'm just gonna lower the heat a little bit so it doesn't suddenly start to burn. But again, just melting, really bubbly. I don't yet see the bottom of the pan, but once all of the lactose in it has cooked, then you'll start seeing the bottom of the pan. And Vandana, chime in if you have any additional things to talk about ghee from the nutrition standpoint. I mean, one of the things I know as a food blogger is that ghee is also Whole30 approved. People who are allergic to ghee, a lot of them can actually have ghee. Anything else you have to add, Vandana?
Yeah. So because you do the straining process, a lot of the lactose is gone from the ghee. And so those who are lactose intolerant most likely can handle ghee, but it depends on how sensitive you are.
Okay.
So something to just keep in mind. But
Yeah.
it's definitely part of the Indian heritage, but it's become very popular. You can find ghee at any store now here. But I would say make your own because it's so easy. And
it's so
fun.
easy to make. Yeah. And the good part about ghee, I feel, is its shelf life. I never refrigerate my ghee, so you can just put it in a clean glass mason jar at room temperature. And people always are like, how long does ghee last? if you really cook it well and don't put like wet spoons or anything in there, to me, ghee lasts forever, literally, like not even kidding. Nothing really happens to it. It may go from like a solidified to a more liquidy state, depending on the weather, depending on the temperature in your kitchen. So in the winter, my bottle of ghee is pretty solidified. And in the summers, like maybe the top half is like melty, golden liquidy, and then the bottom one is like more crumbly and kind of thickish, almost like coconut oil, right? So you don't necessarily have to refrigerate, but again, if you're not going to use it too much, then you can absolutely refrigerate, and that's fine too. So I'm actually going to go ahead and turn off my heat because I have this induction stove that kind of stays hot for a few minutes, but you can see this is all now become frothy. And if you just move the froth a little bit on the side, it's kind of hard with such a small quantity and amount. You will start seeing the bottom, and I'm just gonna show you guys how this looks. It's just beautiful golden yellow, and because of the heat that it was cooking at, it's kind of continuing to cook for the next few minutes. And you guys can see like this side is starting to become brown, which is perfect. That's when you want to stop cooking. And I'm just going to take out this pan. The bubbles will settle in a minute once it cools down, and you will be able to see at the bottom of the pan. But we're going to go ahead and allow this ghee to cool down while we make our Kathi rolls. And then I'm going to show you guys how I strain my ghee. So are there any questions on ghee, Anne, before we move on to the Kathi rolls?
No questions on ghee.
No questions. All right.
I think it's just so simple.
So simple. Yeah, it's one ingredient. You melt it until it gets nice golden brown. Let it cool down. And then we're going to go ahead and strain it in a dry glass jar. So super, super easy to make. All right. So the next recipe we're going to move on to is Kathi roll, Indian street food. Everybody loves it. Needs very few spices. Traditionally, it was cooked on metal skewers. It would be pieces of meat, slow cooked on metal skewers, and then you wrap it up in a nice paratha or a roti with some chutney and some other garnishes. And that's how it was cooked. Obviously, my version doesn't need skewers. It's a vegetarian version using paneer or the Juustoleipa cheese that we are going to use today. Super easy to make as we get along cooking. I'm going to tell you guys few ways to make ahead, how this recipe works great for lunch, packing your lunch boxes, or even picnics, or even like a full-fledged dinner. So let's start by making, I'm gonna just move this a little bit so I can show you guys how I marinate the paneer. Again, it just needs few minutes. Super simple recipe. We are going to start by adding, I see this. I'm gonna push it more back. All right, so we're gonna start by adding some ginger and garlic paste. And I know there is ready-made ginger and garlic paste available now, but I really encourage everybody to try making it at home. Super simple. I have the recipe on how to make homemade ginger paste and garlic paste at home. Make it ahead, freeze it, and then you have it anytime you need to cook Indian food. A little bit of plain yogurt. You don't need Greek yogurt. This is just regular plain yogurt. And then to that, I'm going to add a few spices, starting with turmeric, which everybody is familiar with. Some red chili powder. I like to use this Kashmiri variety. Like Vandana was saying, Kashmir is where the Himalayas are, the northern part of the country. That's where these chilies come from. They give a bright red hue to the curries and to the food without adding excess heat, which is amazing. So what we want in this recipe is lots of flavors, but not too much heat. So here we go, adding the red chili powder. And then I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit of garam masala. This is a homemade garam masala. Again, the recipe is on ministryofcurry.com, uses just 5 ingredients. Super easy to make and something that you can make and use for 6 months. Nothing really beats homemade ground spices. Obviously, now with all the online stores, you can always buy garam masala at store. But if you're one of those people who loves Indian food, I would highly encourage you try making your own homemade garam masala. And then the last spice, which is kind of optional, but it's nice if you have it, is the Kasuri Methi, which is dried fenugreek leaves. So the way to release the aromas in this spice is to take the dried leaves on the palm of your hand and just rub it and crush. And then if you guys are cooking, smell it at this point, and it's just so aromatic and beautiful. And added this to our bowl, and this is the marinade. The cheese pack that we all received is 8 ounces, which is about a cup. So I'm gonna half the recipe for that. And the only other change I'm doing to my original recipes, I'm not adding any salt because the Juustoleipa cheese already is salty, so we don't want to make this dish overly salty. The chutney that we are going to use to serve also has salt, so we can totally skip on salt in this recipe. And just give this a quick mix. And this is our marinated paneer. Super easy to make. You can always marinate this beforehand. In the summer, if you like, you can make skewers with this marinated paneer and pieces of onions, peppers, throw it on the grill, and it makes for a delicious vegetarian meal. You can serve it with bread, naan bread, or you can serve it with rice. So let's get cooking. Here is our marinated paneer or the Juustoleipa cheese, and we're gonna start cooking the filling for the Khaki Roll. So there are 3 parts to the Khaki Roll recipes. One is the filling, for which we marinated the cheese. Part 2 is the chutney, the cilantro mint chutney that you guys have the recipe for. You wanna make this ahead of time, freezes beautifully. So now after the summer, if you guys have all that excess mint in your garden, use that to make this chutney. It freezes beautifully in small portions, and then that way you can have it on any of your Indian recipes. And then the third part is going to be the bread, which I'm going to use a specific variety that's sold in Indian grocery stores, but you can use any tortilla, any want to make sure this is all right. You can use any tortilla, you can use any low carb bread options that you like. We just want to be able to roll it up and make it like a blanket to our filling and enjoy it. So let's start to make the filling.
Hey, Archana.
Yes.
So Michelle asked, and Vandana chimed in about this too, but she said she loves making parathas homemade, but what do you think of the Trader Joe's frozen paratha as another option?
Yes, so the if you can make parathas at home, it's obviously not going to beat any store-bought. So that's great. I love that you're making parathas at home. The frozen parathas that are sold in Trader Joe's, I believe, are called Malabar roti, which I like. It's great, but it's so loaded with lots of butter and grease. But there are certain recipes with which it really works out great. And I think that's something you can eat once in a while. Again, I'm sure Vandana can chime in as a nutritionist. It's delicious. It's, to me, just a little on the heavier side. So I prefer using either a different brand of parathas or just use like a low carb tortillas if I'm making this dish often. All right, so we're gonna start by making the filling. Heating a little bit of oil. Again, since we are halving the recipe, we're just gonna need a little bit of everything, and hence the cook time is also going to be less. So I'm adding my sliced red onion and the peppers. Again, the whole point of this dish is to make it pretty, add lots of vegetables of different colors. I love the purple, red, and green, but if you have yellow peppers or orange peppers, or you just have yellow onions, then you can just add those and this recipe still will be great. The other way to load up your Kathi rolls with a lot of veggies is the perfect situation we have right now, where our cheese packets are only 8 ounces. And so we can then still add the same amount of veggies and just add a little bit cheese, and that works totally fine too. So super versatile recipe. You can change it to your liking, whatever flavors you like more, you can add more of that. So I'm just gonna cook this for 2 to 3 minutes. I don't like my veggies super soft. I like if they have a little bit crunch and a bite to them. So we'll cook them on medium heat for like 2 minutes. And then we are going to go ahead and add our marinated paneer to it. And that's going to be our filling. Like I said, super easy. If you're looking for variations on this recipe, I would suggest trying a chicken Kathi roll. Comes out delicious. Same exact process that we did to marinate the cheese. You're going to use that for chicken. Cut up chicken breasts or chicken thighs into small 1-inch pieces and then marinate them. With chicken, I would probably marinate it a couple hours, maybe even overnight to get all the flavors in. And then you follow the same exact process. All right, so let's get this all mixed up. And then we are going to add the paneer to the peppers. In the meantime, Anne, do we have any questions?
No new questions coming in. A lot of conversation about the parathas, which is so fun that I tried them for the first time making this recipe of yours, and they are absolutely delicious. I think, Archana, you had recommended Koan Parathas. Was that the brand? Those were really yummy. And I was able
so they
to
are a
find
little
them.
bit thinner than the Malabar roti. And they come in different variations now. They come in whole wheat, they come in like a low GI, and then they come in like the regular and flaky variety. But I like the size of it, and it really works well for the Khaki Roll recipe. Again, if you're making it homemade, that totally works too.
Yeah, and I was going to mention Archana's mint cilantro chutney recipe is also available on unbottled.com and then also on her website, ministryofcurry.com as well. And it is also delicious.
Yeah. All right, so we have the peppers cooking. You just want to cook until they are like a tiny bit soft. And then to that, I'm going to add our marinated red cheese. And I actually turned off my heat because I found that with this cheese, sometimes if you cook it at high heat, it can start to melt. So at this point, you just want to turn it off and cook just until your cheese is heated through and nicely mixed in. I'm hoping some of you guys are actually cooking along and smelling all of these amazing aromas. I'm like, literally, my mouth is watering as I'm cooking this. Smells so good. It's packed with flavors. Looks so pretty colorful.
Archana, Michelle just asked, is there no difference between roti and paratha?
Oh, there is a difference between roti and paratha. Again, within just roti itself, I feel has so many meanings. So for us who grew up in Western India, roti is like a whole wheat, thin bread. But in some parts of Northern India, roti can mean a thick bread that's cooked in the tandoor. So they call it tandoor roti, while the roti we make is on the pan. And the main difference between roti and paratha to me is paratha is usually layered dough that you roll with like oil and flour in the middle, or sometimes other fillings stuffed in and then you roll. So there could be a rolled paratha or there could be a layered paratha, while roti most of the times is just piece of dough that you rolled thin or thick and then cooked. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
All right. All right, so here is our filling. It's all ready, and I love to garnish it with lots of cilantro. I know some people are not fans of cilantro, in which case you guys can skip it or add your favorite herb that you like. And that's basically our filling. Super easy recipe. As a meal prep, you can make the filling ahead of time and fill in your Kathi rolls when you're ready to eat. So really works out when you have a busy schedule. I'm gonna go ahead and take this out in a little serving bowl so we can start assembling. But in the meantime, I'm also going to warm up one of the parathas that I recommend for this recipe. and show you guys how the packaging looks. And so that way, if you guys are interested, you can pick it up next time you're in your Indian grocery stores. All right, so let's get a new pan. I'm gonna grab the paratha from the freezer because if I keep it out, it does tend to get all soft and then it gets a little bit harder to handle. So let's take out the paratha. Just give me 1 second. All right, so these are the parathas I'm gonna use. You guys can see it. Maybe I'll hold it down here. Koan Parathas, and they come kind of individually wrapped in little baggies. So let's go ahead and warm up one just so I can show you how to assemble the Khaki Roll. Here we go. Just gonna put it on the pan. And then we're just gonna cook this on both the sides. And then in the meantime, I'm gonna get all of my other ingredients that I'm gonna use to assemble this Khaki Roll ready. So got a little plate. Sliced onions, yellow or red. I love the crunch of fresh onions. I know some people may not like onions. I absolutely love them. So I like to add a little bit of onion on top. If you want to skip it, you totally can skip. And if you like other garnishes like carrots or you know, anything else that you want to load up as a topping, you totally can do that. Some cilantro, and then the cilantro mint chutney, which is one of my favorite condiments to have. I'm sure Vandana is going to talk all about the condiments and how we serve them in Indian cuisine. But chutney, if you guys have been to an Indian restaurant, I'm sure you've seen a green chutney often served complimentary when you walk in with the papad or with samosas. And I love that it's kind of healthy. It's loaded with all the herbs. I use some green chili and ginger. Again, not overly spicy, but just packed with flavor. And then I also love to add a little bit of fresh coconut to it. That gives it a nice body. So that's how the chutney looks. And again, this was frozen. I made it earlier in the summer, and then I freeze them in like these little silicone ice cube trays. And then you can just pop out 1 or 2 or 3 of the ice cubes as you need them to make your recipes. All right, so I'm gonna wait until this bottom side is fully cooked and then flip it over. The best part about this paratha is it already has enough butter and oil in it, so you don't really need to add any. It just will start releasing all of the oils in it as it's cooking. Flip this guy over. We're gonna cook both the sides. In the meantime, if there are any questions, happy to answer.
Yeah, Archana, so how do you know when to flip it? What are you looking for?
Okay, so when we put it down, it looked all white like the raw paratha. I'm gonna show you one. When we put it, it kind of looked all white like that. See that? And then when I flipped, it already had started to look like a lightly yellow translucent on one side from all these, like the bottom side. So I flipped it over and it takes about 3 to 4 minutes. Obviously, I'm using this induction heat that takes like longer for the pan to heat up. But once you get going, it takes about 3 to 4 minutes for each paratha. And you want to cook them just until both the sides are golden brown. And the first flip, you don't want to do it too early on, because if your dough is kind of soft, it gets all difficult to like flip it over because it's still so soft. Once the bottom side gets partially cooked, then it's super easy to flip it over like that. So again, we're just going to cook both the sides. And then you can just gently press them down so they cook evenly. So go ahead, Anne.
Oh yeah, no, sorry to cough. I did notice too, it was really important to take them out of the freezer right before so it didn't get sticky like you mentioned.
Yeah,
So
otherwise they tend to stick to the paper and then it's hard to take it out. But this way, you know, they're still like hard as rock and you can just like peel it off and then put it in there. But then once the bottom side starts to cook, they do tend to get really soft. So you want to then give it extra couple minutes for it to cook.
Okay.
Again, like I don't know like the age group of all the audience, but I have teenage kids and this is one of the recipes that's so easy that they can even make it. So just want to like encourage kids and people of all ages to try this recipe. And like I said, you can very easily change the spice levels. All right, so here we are, nice and golden brown on both the sides. And I'm just gonna turn off the heat and move my pan so I can show you guys how I assemble this. All right, so start by taking a plate. All right. And then I'm gonna place the paratha on the plate and take maybe 2 teaspoons of the chutney and spread it all around. And then in the middle of it, I'm gonna put in my cheese filling, and then all the peppers and onions. And then you can garnish with whatever you like on the top. I'm gonna put in raw red onions. You can use yellow onions, or feel free to skip onions altogether. And just a little bit of fresh cilantro for the crunch. And then we're gonna take the 2 sides and roll them up like that. And that's your paratha.
Beautiful.
Kathi roll, super easy to make, such a versatile recipe. You can use cheese, you can use chicken, you can use both. I do a lot of time paneer and chicken together and that tastes delicious, but this is such a great dish packed with proteins for vegetarians too. And it also has all the veggies. It tastes so good. This is kind of hot, but you can also wrap this up in parchment paper and then cut it into half. And then I often serve that as appetizers for parties. And people love that too. But this makes for a great appetizer, a lunch, and a dinner.
I wish we were in your kitchen with you right now, Archana.
I know, I wish I could pass one each to each one of you, but I hope you guys will try it. And if you guys have any questions, you can reach me out through my blog. I'm always happy to answer any questions.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I think we're going to pass it back to Vandana.
Sounds good. Thank you.
So that was amazing, Archana. That looks so delicious. And so
Thank
now
you.
what I thought is we'd walk you through the cuisine of India. So when you think about Indian cuisine, it is diverse. It varies based on the region, based on your religion, based on what's available, and also based on your family traditions. Even within the same city, same state, each family has their own version of a recipe. So I thought I'd walk you through 4 main regions, so the North Indian, South, West, and East, so you can see a little bit of what that cuisine looks like. So right here in front of you, you see this beautiful dish. It's called paneer masala, which is an Indian cheese in this rich, creamy sauce, which is fragrant with aromatics and usually served with naan or some type of roti or paratha. And so when you think about North Indian cuisine, think about the Mughal influence. So a lot of the spices, a lot of the dried fruits and nuts were added into this cuisine. It was rich. They used the tandoor oven, which is a clay oven, to bake their bread in. And also, if you think of Tandoori chicken, which you may have had at an Indian restaurant, it's basically chicken that was marinated in a yogurt spiced mix, kind of like what Archana did in the Kathi Roll. That is something that's very common in the North Indian cuisine. And wheat is the predominant grain in the North. And when you look at this meal right here, this is a beautiful festive plate. And I think Archana had sent me this picture. This is one of her meals that she had presented. And so if you notice, this is a Northwestern meal. So you see the paratha, you also see a beautiful, colorful rice, and you see a dessert that has little pieces, the orange dessert with little pieces of cashews. There's a yogurt and it looks like beetroot dip, raita. And then there's another curry on the side. And you have the steamed rice cake that's called dhokla. That's more from the Western states. So this is a combination of North and Western ideologies in terms of spices. So now we go to actually the authentic Western Indian thali. Thali is the word used for the plate, the presentation of a meal in the North. It's typically served in a stainless steel plate with a few different containers or little bowls for different things. And there's bread that's usually paratha, roti, that's made at home, served with a few vegetable dishes, served with some beans. And you will usually see some fried, crunchy items like papads that's on the left there. And then there's a dessert in the middle. That's a milk-based dessert. It's called kheer. So this is an example of the Western plate. And when you think about the Western region, it includes Rajasthan, which has the desert. So a lot of the vegetables found there are very different. And then you have Goa and Maharashtra, which has the coastline. So if you were looking at that, you would find a lot more of seafood. This plate right here looks like more an Gujarati plate. And so it would be more vegetarian because that state has a lot of people who follow Hinduism and also a sect called Jainism, where they're very strict vegetarians. So this is usually a great place to find vegetarian food. And this year, pav bhaji, I would love for Archana to share a little bit because it's from her place. It's from Mumbai.
Yeah, so one of my favorite recipes, one of the recipes on the blog that people absolutely love, street food of India, similar to our street food of Maharashtra as it started, and now it's become street food of India. It is delicious. The bhaji, which is the curry, has all sorts of mixed vegetables in it. There's cauliflowers, onions, peppers, potatoes, carrots, green peas, and it's cooked and mashed to like a creamy consistency with lots of butter in it, which is a must in this recipe. And then the pav, which are those bread rolls on the side, are toasted with some butter again on a pan and then served hot. And you basically take a piece off the bread and dunk it into the curry. And it's one of the best foods you would ever eat.
Absolutely agree. And so even though I grew up in the South, pav bhaji was a very popular dish in my school cafeteria. And anytime we went anywhere, I think of it as a sloppy joe. It's an Indian vegetarian sloppy joe, and it's loaded with vegetables. So it's a great way to serve it. This is a display of an Eastern Indian plate. And if you look at this, this is gorgeous. So when you think of Eastern India, they use a lot of fish. Fish is very popular and rice is the predominant grain. So if you notice, there's a big mound of rice in the middle, and then there's that piece of fish, and they have a variety of curries. And another thing that Eastern Indian cuisine is known for, especially from the state of West Bengal, they're known for their sweets. They have a sweet tooth, a lot of dishes made with milk and milk products. So right here, these little balls, they're called rasagulla, and it's a steamed milk dessert that's soaked in sugar syrup. It's really delicious.
Soaked in sugar syrup, and sometimes they'll have the same dessert in like a creamy milk-based.
Exactly. It's called ras malai, right?
Ras malai, which is so delicious. I think that's more common here in the restaurants, and it's one of my favorite milk-based desserts.
Yes. And so moving to the South. So in South India, the traditional meal is actually served on a banana leaf. So when you walk into someone's home or at a restaurant, if you're having an authentic South Indian meal, it's served on a banana leaf, you clean it, and then they start with rice. Rice is the predominant grain, and a lot of it is vegetarian. So the thing that you see on top of the white rice, that's called sambar. It's a vegetable stew made from lentils with lots of vegetables. There are at least 2-3 vegetable dishes there. And you see this crunchy white kind of fried thing that's called an appalam, which is similar to papad, but this is a South Indian version. And so South Indian food is known for its vegetarian options. And also depending on which part of the southern states you're from, if you're from Andhra Pradesh, you might have a lot more heat, and they are known for their Mughal influence. So you might have more of the biryani, which is a rice, chicken, spicy dish. If you got southern food from Kerala, it's going to have a lot more coconut oil, coconut milk. It's going to have fish as well. And I know one of our attendees, her childhood home was from Kerala, so I'm sure she has a lot more to say about Kerala. And this right here is one of my favorite street foods. It's called dosa. It's a South Indian dish. It's made from a batter that's fermented. It's rice and lentil that's fermented. And you make these crispy crepes. It's served with a variety of dips. There's a coconut chutney, there's sambar, which is a stew, and there's usually a potato, onion curry that you can either stuff your crepe with or have it on the side. This was taken at a local Indian restaurant here. And so if you've never had a chance to try dosa, I would highly recommend you try it next time you're at an Indian restaurant. It's fun. So let's talk about some traditional meals. So in India, it's just like here. Often there are 3 traditional meals. So there's a morning meal, lunch, mid-afternoon meal, and an evening meal. And in many parts of the country, there is a tea time or a snack or tiffin in the South. And that's very common. And that's mid-afternoon. And that's usually when you either have tea or coffee, depending on where you're from. And it's never food, drinks are never served by themselves. There's always some food around it, either some little snacks. The biggest meal often is the evening meal. And that's just because that's when the family is all together. Food is served on a plate, and usually you use your hands to eat your food. Food is to be savored. It's your right hand is the most common hand to use for food. If you have something like a roti or chapati, the bread, you would tear off a piece, use that to scoop the different dishes. You could use utensils, but often it's surprising how well you can eat just with your fingers. And there's something about Ayurveda where there's the belief that food just tastes better when you taste it from your fingers. Anything else you'd like to add there, Archana?
No, yeah, you're right. Like, if you guys love Indian food and you've been using spoons and forks, try just with your hands, and it's absolutely delicious.
It's fun.
Don't be afraid to lick your fingers.
Yes. And this right here, I just wanted to share with you this beautiful picture. So this right here, the stainless steel container is called a tiffin box. It's a lunch box. And this is traditionally how food used to be packed in the morning and sent to someone at work or to your school. And so each container has a different dish. So you would have rice, you would have your roti, which is your bread, you would have a curry or dal. And then I remember there used to be a little container my mom would pack in one of those that would have the pickles and the chutney or something like that. Yeah. And it's fun when you open it up, you have all these different containers and you can share with your friends or if you're at work. So just a little insight to how food is served. Moving on to traditional accompaniments. So an Indian meal is never just 1 or 2 things. It's the main entree, but again, it's not served in courses. It's usually served family style. So you would have the bread, you would have the lentils, you would have maybe some kind of yogurt dish, but you definitely would have pickles and chutneys. And so here, right here, I'm just sharing a few examples. So again, depending on where you're from, the chutney would vary. So I know Archana mentioned the green chutney, it's often a cilantro mint chutney. In the South, you might find a peanut chutney, or you might find a tamarind chutney or a ginger chutney. Yeah. So it just depends where you're from. Raita is the term used for a yogurt-based dip. It's often with vegetables like cucumber or carrots or beets, but you can play around with it. Pudi is the South Indian word for powder, but it's usually a spiced powder. Often you would get a bowl of rice and then you would have ghee and you'd have a variety of powders. It could be either a chili-based powder, it could be a lentil-based powder, it could be a mint, dried mint and fenugreek powder. And you would literally mix your rice with ghee and those powders and make it a flavorful option. Kachumber is a word for a diced chopped vegetable salad. It doesn't have the yogurt. And papad is that what you may see at Indian restaurants called papadum or papad. It's a lentil-based flatbread that's either deep fried or roasted. And pickles. Now, when it comes to pickles, pickles in India are not just marinated in salt. They often have other ingredients. Archana, do you want to chime in to something about pickles?
Yeah, sure. So I love pickles. Like just the name pickles makes my mouth water. And it's something my mom and my grandma would have done in the summer months. So they'll buy like raw mangoes or limes, and then they make like big jars of pickles with spices, often like whole mustard, right? Like they grain it, like the grainy mustard, whatever it's called, from the seeds. Lots of oil that actually keeps them good for a longer time, the whole year pretty much. Lots of spices, and it's just like my mouth waters even when I talk about pickles. But if you guys haven't tried, now in Indian grocery stores, there are so many brands that sell mixed pickles, mango pickles, lemon pickles, pickles. You guys have to pick up a jar or a bottle next time you're in Indian grocery stores and have it just a little bit. You only need a little spoonful as a side with your Indian meal, and it really completes the whole meal.
Absolutely agree. Many, many fond memories of summer, seeing my mom make those jars of pickles that last the whole year. And they're so good. And they're actually fairly easy to make. So I'm sure Archana maybe has a couple recipes on her website, on her blog, and you can look it up, try it. So this year in the summer, we have a lemon tree. So I literally just picked the lemons, crushed them, a little bit, added some salt, some chili, mustard, oil, and it's so flavorful. Give it a try. Moving on to beverages. So Indians love their chai. So chai actually came from India. So if you go to a coffee shop here and get a chai latte, the origins were from India. Every home has their own version of making chai. So often masala chai is what you may think of as chai latte. It's usually black tea, milk, water, boiled with spices. So it could be cardamom, it could be nutmeg, cloves, cinnamon, ginger, mint. You can play around with those spices, and it's usually sweetened, but it's not as sweet as you would find at a coffee shop here. Coffee is very popular in the South, where I grew up from. And the way the coffee is made is you would use a coffee filter. It's a stainless steel container. Each family has their own version of chicory and coffee that they roast and buy. And you would add a couple spoons of that coffee powder, add hot water, and let it percolate and drip down. And that is the concentrate. It almost is like an espresso shot. You would use that in your mug and then add steamed milk to it and sugar. And that's usually served in the South. Coconut water is a very, very common beverage. Most cities, you would find carts of sellers selling coconut water. It is so thirst quenching, especially with the heat. Lassi is another popular beverage. It's made with yogurt, and it can either be sweet or salty. And if you want to have fun, add some mango to it, and mango lassi is really fun. Sharbat is another beverage. It's just, it's kind of like lemonade, but sometimes it's spiced with Indian spices. So you may find some black salt in it or some cumin in it or pepper in it, which makes
ginger even. Yeah.
Right. And one of my favorites is sugarcane juice. If you ever get a chance to try some fresh sugarcane juice, do it. It is so good. And it's sugarcane that's put through this juicer. And then in India, it's often served with ginger and lime, and it's so good. And of course, flavored milk, flavored with spices and nuts, is another popular beverage. Did I miss something, Archana?
No, you've got it all.
Which one is your favorite?
I love chai. I'm a chai person, and I have 2 cups of chai every single day. I don't add sugar to it, but I do add fresh ginger. So it's black tea, fresh ginger, a little bit of milk, not too much, no sugar, and it's so good. It's my favorite part of the day when I'm having my cup of tea.
Love it. So I'm someone who loves both. I love my chai and I love my coffee. So I have both.
Awesome.
So let's talk about festivals. India has so many religions and so many festivals, and every festival, every celebration has a specific food routine connected to it. So as a child, I knew which holiday was coming up based on what I would see my mom prep the week before. So right now we are actually heading into the biggest Indian holiday called Diwali. So these little clay lamps you see in the picture are a symbol of Diwali. And Diwali is the festival of lights. It's where we're celebrating the victory of good over evil. And there's lots of traditional foods, sweets, and treats that come along with that. And I know Archana has been posting some gorgeous meals and recipes.
My favorite festival.
Yes, mine too. And so a couple other festivals I wanted to highlight are Navratri that we just passed, and Holi, which is the festival of colors. So again, different foods are associated with different holidays. So if you get a chance, try and explore some of those. So I'm not sure how we're doing on time, but I'm going to run through a few slides just to walk you through some of the common components of Indian food. There's usually some kind of starch. It could be roti or flatbread, rice, depending on where you're from. It could be basmati or white or even red rice. A lot of millets are used in Indian cooking, and you would find buckwheat and sorghum as well. Beans and lentils, it's amazing how many varieties there are. It's not just one or two. If you look at Archana and my pantries, you will find shelves full of different varieties of lentils and beans. And they're made in a different preparation every day, so it doesn't seem monotonous. Produce, big part of Indian culture and Indian food. I just wanted to highlight a few that are unique. So moringa, which is now becoming a superfood here, actually something that was used all the time in Indian food. It used to be called drumsticks in India, and the drumstick leaves, the moringa leaves, were crushed and used as a chutney or added in that dosa, the crepe. We had moringa trees in my childhood home. Fenugreek, that Archana had mentioned, the Kasuri Methi, that's been looked at for helping with blood sugar and helping with breast milk production if you're someone who's nursing a baby. Lots of scientific data why that's helpful. So if you get a chance, use fenugreek, either the seeds or the herbs. Mango is the national fruit of India. Hundreds of varieties of mangoes every summer. That would be something we would look forward to. It's nice to see that we can find some delicious mangoes here. Pomegranate is another one that's used in Indian cuisine. Also, jackfruit that I didn't put on this list is something that is from India, and it's just an amazing fruit if you've not tried it. Something else that's part of Indian cuisine is fermented foods. So yogurt, that's typically used. Every home makes their own yogurt often. Idli and dokla are both fermented battered. Idli is the steamed rice cakes, and dokla is the one that you saw on the northwestern plate. It's a steamed rice and lentil cake as well. Some common dairy foods that are used in India are milk is used every day, yogurt, buttermilk is used either as a beverage or as a soup, ghee, paneer, condensed milk, and these are some names of desserts in Indian cuisine. And that's a picture, a beautiful picture of palak paneer, which you may have had at an Indian restaurant. This is really what makes Indian food stand out, the spices. This is one of my spice boxes at home. This is the whole spices. And then I have another one with the powdered spices. So something that you could play around and try and fill your spice box with. This is the dietary guidelines for Indians in India. I'm going to skip over this and just add a few comments about what you could keep in mind if you were trying to incorporate more Indian foods. It's basically enjoying a variety of produce, getting more plant-based proteins in like beans and lentils, play around with the spices. They have a lot of health benefits as well as they make your food so much more flavorful. Enjoy more whole grains, so roti or chapati instead of naan. Enjoy healthier snack options like the Kathi Roll instead of maybe a deep fried samosa. I'm not saying you can't have samosas, they're so good, but just enjoy them in moderation. So where can you find some of these Indian ingredients? Well, most major cities in America have a community called Little India. If you look it up, you will find it. Major cities do have them. They can be an adventure by itself. You can find all kinds of products and at a very reasonable price, especially the spices. Another option is online. You can find things on Amazon. You can order it from Pensy's. And of course, even now our regular stores, Trader Joe's, have so many options. I'm going to leave you with some resources that we pulled together. Hopefully you will find some of these interesting and helpful. And here's how you can reach Archana and me. We are both on Instagram. We both have websites and would love to stay in touch with all of you. So I hope you found this helpful and we're ready to take some questions.
And while we wait for the questions, I forgot to strain my ghee, so which I went ahead and did with a little tea strainer, super easy. And you can see this golden yellow ghee. It's gonna solidify with the cooler temperature. So if you put it in the refrigerator, and then these are the milk solids that we're just gonna discard.
Oh, it's beautiful, Archana. I feel like I can smell it virtually.
So good.
So ladies, we are just a little bit over time, so we're gonna skip questions this time, but I do want to encourage everyone on the line, if any of your questions in the chat didn't get answered, I'll be sending out Vandana and Archana's or a PDF to the slide, so you'll have their contact information. Please reach out to them. I know that both of them are more than willing to answer any questions and keep in touch for sure. So, and Archana and Vandana, thank you so much. This has been a wonderful hour and 15 minutes. It flew by. We learned so much good information and saw so much good food. So again, we just can't thank you enough for joining today. And everyone, before you leave, we still have our Indian raffle box. So let me go ahead and bring that up. We're going to choose a lucky winner. So as we mentioned at the beginning, both Archana and Vandana are cookbook authors. So both of their books are in the raffle. So Archana's book is My Indian Table Cookbook, and Vandana's is the essential, oops, sorry, backwards. Vandana's is My Indian Table Cookbook, and Archana's is the Essential Indian Instant Pot Cookbook. And they both had some wonderful suggestions for the raffle box. So we took some of those and included a beautiful spice box and a spice grinder as well. And so can I get a little drum roll, please? The lucky winner today is Aaron Clayson. So congratulations, Aaron. We'll contact you after and we'll send you your raffle box. And again, thank you to everyone for joining today. We are super excited for our final Dairy World Tour episode. We're going to France, and this one's a little bit earlier in the month than the past one. So mark your calendars for December 15th. It's 12 to 1:15 p.m. Mountain Time. And we're going to be joined with Chef Michelle Redman and dietitian Mary Brighton. And they together actually made a little episode teaser for you guys to watch right now. So thanks again, and thanks Archana and Vandana.
Thank you.
Bonjour tout le monde et bonjour mon ami Marie, ça va?
Bonjour Michelle, tout va bien? Et bienvenue or welcome to everyone here.
Hey Mary, let's invite everybody to a cooking party and a French happy hour where we cook easy French dishes.
Ah, oui, Michelle, très bonne idée. Great idea. And let's invite everyone to a virtual tour of France to share how French food and culture of eating relates to good health and well-being.
Super, Mary. This is Team France, and we are inviting you all to the Dairy World Tour of France on December 15th and look forward to seeing you all. Au revoir tout le monde.
Au revoir.